the silence of their hearts, many women endure the weight of toxic relationships, silently hoping for change, often unaware that they are entrapped in a cycle that depletes their very essence. We live in a world where society places pressure on individuals to endure, to fight for love, to sacrifice their peace for the sake of another. But true strength lies not in blind endurance, but in the power of self-awareness, in understanding the deeper reasons behind our choices. In a toxic relationship, the mind becomes clouded by fear, uncertainty, and longing, leading one to believe that the only path forward is to continue. But to truly be free, to live with dignity and peace, we must first confront the reasons we allow ourselves to be bound by what is destructive. This is not a tale of blame, but a journey towards understanding, a path to inner clarity, and the courage to step into the light of self-liberation, understanding the hidden power of attachment. At the core of every relationship, be it toxic or healthy, lies attachment. Attachment is the bond we form, often unintentionally, with another person. It shapes our thoughts, actions, and decisions, sometimes in ways that we fail to fully understand. It is this attachment that binds us, that makes us see the world through another's eyes and feel as though our happiness is tied to theirs. For many women, this attachment becomes a prison they cannot escape. It is not merely the love they share with another, it is the belief that their worth is interwoven with the presence of this person in their life. When we attach ourselves to another person, we often place our sense of identity in their hands. We look to them for validation, for confirmation that we are worthy, that we are enough. In toxic relationships, this attachment is magnified, and with it, the emotional dependency grows. The belief that we cannot survive without the other person becomes a haunting thought, a shadow that looms over every decision. The idea of breaking free from this bond, from this person, seems impossible. The mind begins to rationalize the suffering, to convince itself that love, even if painful, is the only thing worth pursuing. But this is where the danger lies. The Stoics teach us that attachment, when it becomes excessive, clouds our judgment. We become like ships adrift on a stormy sea, caught in the currents of emotion, unable to steer ourselves towards the calm shores of wisdom and peace. Epictetus spoke of the importance of separating our inner peace from external events. He warned against relying on anything outside ourselves for happiness, for that is the path to misery. When we attach our happiness to another person, we give them the power to destroy our peace. True strength comes from understanding that attachment is not love. Love, in its purest form, is free from expectation and dependency. It is not clinging to another, but accepting them for who they are, while remaining steadfast in our own sense of self. Attachment, however, is the chain that keeps us tied to another's behavior, to their moods, to their actions. It is in this attachment that we lose ourselves. We begin to view ourselves through their eyes, and when they disappoint us, we are left broken, as if a part of us has been stolen away. To break free from toxic relationships, we must first recognize this attachment for what it is. It is not love. It is fear. The fear of being alone, the fear of not being enough, the fear of losing something that we believe defines us. These fears are natural, but they are also illusions. Our worth is not determined by another person. It never has been, and it never will be. The Stoics understood that true freedom comes when we are able to detach our sense of self from external factors. We must learn to love ourselves, to understand that our worth is intrinsic, not dependent on anyone else's approval or presence. This realization is not easy. It requires introspection, patience, and the courage to face the discomfort of being alone. But it is in this process of self-discovery that we unlock the strength to move beyond toxic attachments. We must come to terms with the truth that our happiness does not rest in the hands of another, it rests within us. Only when we understand this, when we free ourselves from the chains of attachment, can we begin to live a life of true autonomy and peace. The fear of loneliness and self-doubt. Loneliness is a powerful force, one that can distort our perception of reality and cloud our judgment. It is often the silent motivator behind many decisions that we make in life, especially when it comes to our relationships. In toxic relationships, this fear of being alone can become the very thing that keeps us tethered to the storm, preventing us from stepping into the calm. The fear of loneliness is not just the absence of company, but the deeper, more insidious fear of not being enough without someone by our side. It is a fear that erodes our confidence, our sense of self-worth, and our ability to see clearly. When we experience loneliness, it is as if a part of us is missing. We begin to believe that we are incomplete without the validation, the attention, or the presence of another person. This belief is not rooted in truth. It is a product of our insecurities and our conditioned need for external approval. The Stoics understood that we must learn to embrace solitude, for in solitude we discover who we truly are. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, often reflected on the idea that we are capable of finding peace and contentment within ourselves, regardless of the external circumstances. To fear loneliness is to deny our own strength, to reject the beauty of being at peace with our own thoughts and emotions. In the context of toxic relationships, loneliness becomes a tool of manipulation. The toxic partner, knowingly or unknowingly, uses this fear to maintain control. They may threaten abandonment or create an emotional environment where the other person feels worthless and unworthy of love without them. In such a scenario, the fear of being alone magnifies. The individual clings to the relationship not out of love, but out of the terror of being left behind. The thought of walking away from the toxicity becomes unbearable, because in doing so, they would be facing the vast emptiness of their own soul, a void they fear they cannot fill. This is where self-doubt enters. The fear of loneliness is often compounded by the belief that we are not enough. We begin to doubt our own abilities, our own worth, our own capacity to create a fulfilling life without the presence of another. The toxic relationship feeds this self-doubt, amplifying the feelings of inadequacy, of unworthiness, of being incapable of finding happiness outside the dysfunction. It is as if the relationship has become the mirror through which we see ourselves, and that reflection is distorted. We begin to believe that the only way to feel whole again is to stay, to endure, to sacrifice our peace for the sake of someone else's comfort. But this is a lie. It is a lie that must be confronted. The Stoics teach us that we are never truly alone, for we always carry our inner world with us. We have the power to shape our thoughts, to define our worth, to create a life of meaning and purpose. The fear of loneliness is a reflection of the fear of not knowing who we are without someone else's presence. But in truth, we are always enough. Our worth is not determined by the company we keep, but by the way we carry ourselves through life. The journey to overcoming the fear of loneliness begins with the realization that we are complete as we are, that we have the capacity to fill our own lives with love, peace, and fulfillment. To break free from this cycle, we must learn to silence the voices of doubt, and embrace the stillness of our own souls. We must learn to be comfortable in our own company, to find joy in the quiet moments, and to trust that we are more than enough. The Stoics knew that true freedom comes from within. And when we understand this, we no longer fear the absence of another person. We begin to see that our happiness, our strength, and our worth are not dependent on anyone else, but on our own ability to stand firm in the face of adversity, to walk through life with dignity and grace. It is only then that we can free ourselves from the fear of loneliness and begin to live a life rooted in self-trust and self-love. The illusion of change and false hope. One of the most dangerous traps in toxic relationships is the illusion of change. The belief that things will get better, that the cycle of pain will one day end, that the person who has caused us so much hurt will suddenly transform into someone we can trust and rely on. This illusion is not born from reality. It is an act of self-deception, a desperate hope that the circumstances will change without us needing to confront the truth. The Stoics understood that hope, when it is built on false premises, is the most deceptive of all emotions. It binds us to the illusion of what could be, rather than the reality of what is. It prevents us from seeing the situation as it truly stands. And as long as we remain trapped in this illusion, we remain bound to the toxic relationship, unable to free ourselves. The belief in change often arises from the cycle of highs and lows that toxic relationships create. In the midst of conflict and pain, there may come moments of peace, moments where the toxic partner appears to be different, more loving, more attentive, more understanding. These moments feel like rays of hope breaking through the clouds, and in them the mind clings to the possibility that the relationship can be fixed, that the toxic patterns can be broken. The mind convinces us that these fleeting moments of goodness are the true nature of the person we are with, rather than the dysfunction that dominates the majority of the relationship. It tells us that this time things will be different. This time change is real. But this is where the danger lies. These fleeting moments are not a reflection of genuine change, but an illusion designed to keep us emotionally invested. They are a manipulation of hope, a tactic used to maintain control over the other person's emotions. The toxic individual may at times show love or affection, but it is never consistent, never rooted in genuine transformation. It is a temporary reprieve from the chaos, a way to keep the other person engaged in the cycle. The Stoics taught that the pursuit of change, especially when it is based on the false hope of another person's transformation, is futile. The only change that we have control over is the change within ourselves, the ability to adjust our own responses, to grow in wisdom, and to detach from what harms us. The illusion of change also arises from the desire to avoid pain. It is easier to hope for transformation than it is to face the brutal truth that the person we love may never change. The mind resists this truth because it means confronting the fact that we have invested time, energy, and emotion into something that cannot be salvaged. To acknowledge this is painful, and so we choose to believe in the possibility of change, in the dream of a better future. But this is an illusion, a false hope that keeps us shackled to a relationship that continues to drain us. The Stoics teach that the path to true freedom is through acceptance of reality, not through the false hope of an imagined future. Epictetus spoke of the importance of accepting the present moment as it is without wishing it were otherwise. When we accept reality, when we see the situation for what it truly is, We gain the clarity and strength to make decisions that align with our well-being. We stop waiting for someone else to change and begin to focus on our own growth. We stop hoping for a future that is unlikely to come and start living in the present with the wisdom to know that we are in control of our own happiness. The illusion of change is a powerful force, but it is a force that can be broken when we choose to embrace the truth. We must ask ourselves, are we staying because we truly believe in the potential for change? Or are we staying because we are afraid to face the discomfort of letting go? The Stoics would urge us to face this question with honesty, to strip away the illusions and to see things as they are. In doing so, we reclaim our power, our autonomy, and our peace. We no longer wait for change to come from another person. We create change from within, recognizing that we are the only ones capable of shaping our own destiny. Self-worth and the struggle to let go. At the heart of every toxic relationship lies a struggle, not just between two individuals, but within the person who remains trapped in that relationship. This inner conflict is often rooted in self-worth. When we allow ourselves to stay in a situation that diminishes us, that causes us emotional pain and suffering, we are, in essence, telling ourselves that we are not worthy of anything better. The toxic relationship becomes a mirror, reflecting back to us our deepest insecurities and doubts about our own value. The more we invest in this relationship, the more we begin to lose sight of our inherent worth. We start to believe that we are undeserving of love that is pure, respect that is unconditional, and peace that is unwavering. The Stoics, however, teach us that true self-worth is not determined by the opinions or actions of others. It is something intrinsic, something we must discover within ourselves. In toxic relationships, the struggle to let go is often rooted in the belief that we cannot do better, that we are incapable of finding someone who will love us as we deserve. This belief is not only false, but it is also deeply destructive. It forces us to endure situations that drain us, that strip away our confidence and sense of self, simply because we are convinced that this is the best we can get. The Stoics understood that self-worth cannot be tied to external validation. In fact, they believed that the pursuit of external validation leads us further from true peace. Marcus Aurelius, in his meditations, often reflected on the importance of knowing our own value without the need for recognition from others. He understood that we must be anchored in our own sense of purpose and worth, independent of the fleeting judgments of those around us. When we struggle to let go of a toxic relationship, we are often doing so because we fear the unknown. The thought of stepping away from something familiar, even if it is harmful, is terrifying. It feels safer to remain in the comfort of the known, no matter how painful it may be. But this is an illusion. The longer we stay in a relationship that does not honor our value, the more we erode our sense of self. We begin to see ourselves through the distorted lens of someone else's treatment, and that image is never a true reflection of who we are. It is a reflection of how others choose to treat us, and it is an image that is often filled with contempt, neglect, and manipulation. The struggle to let go also comes from the belief that we are somehow responsible for the other person's happiness or well-being. We think that if we leave, we will be abandoning them, that we will be making their lives worse. But in reality, this is a projection of our own guilt and fear. The Stoics would remind us that we are responsible only for our own actions and choices. We cannot control the happiness or well-being of others, nor should we allow their emotional states to dictate our own peace. True self-worth comes from the understanding that we are not here to fix others. nor are we here to sacrifice our own well-being for the sake of someone else's. We must first honor ourselves, and in doing so we become better equipped to engage in relationships that are healthy, respectful, and nurturing. Letting go is never easy, especially when we have invested so much of ourselves into a relationship. But to remain is to continue to devalue ourselves, to teach ourselves that we are not worthy of love that uplifts, respect that strengthens, and peace that endures. The Stoics teach us that we must be willing to endure discomfort in the short term in order to achieve long-term growth and peace. They understood that self-worth is not something that can be given to us by another person. It must be cultivated within. The act of letting go is, in itself, an act of self-respect. It is a declaration that we value ourselves too much to remain in a situation that causes harm. It is a commitment to our own well-being, to our own growth, and to our own peace. When we let go of what no longer serves us, we make space for the things that truly matter: love that is unconditional, respect that is unwavering, and a sense of peace that is rooted in the knowledge of our own worth. The struggle to let go is the struggle to reclaim ourselves, to step into the truth of who we are, and to live a life that honors our value. And once we embrace this truth, once we learn to let go, we find that the freedom and peace we seek have been within us all along. The cycle of pain and emotional dependency. Toxic relationships are often characterized by a vicious cycle, one that is not easily broken, and one that can create an emotional dependency that feels unshakable. This cycle is built on a foundation of intermittent reinforcement, where moments of love, care, and affection are followed by periods of neglect, abuse, or manipulation. These highs and lows create a powerful emotional pull, a pull that keeps us coming back despite the pain, despite the harm. The Stoics, in their wisdom, understood that the human mind is highly susceptible to patterns of behavior, especially those that offer both pleasure and pain. This cycle, when it becomes entrenched, warps our sense of reality, leading us to believe that love is something that must be earned through suffering, that peace can only be found after enduring chaos. At the core of this cycle lies emotional dependency, an attachment to another person that goes beyond the natural bonds of love and connection. Emotional dependency is a state where our happiness, our sense of self-worth, and our emotional well-being are tethered to the actions and reactions of another person. This dependency blinds us to the truth that we are capable of finding inner peace, of cultivating our own happiness without relying on someone else to provide it. In a toxic relationship, this dependency is magnified to an unhealthy degree, making us believe that we cannot live without the other person, that our happiness is contingent upon their love and attention. The Stoics, however, understood that true happiness comes from within, and it is through cultivating inner peace that we break free from the cycle of dependency. The cycle of pain and emotional dependency begins innocently enough, with the desire to feel loved and valued. But over time, as the toxic patterns of behavior emerge, this need for validation becomes a driving force. The moments of affection, the rare expressions of love, become more valuable than they should be. They are seen as the reward for enduring the pain, for surviving the emotional turmoil that defines the relationship. These moments are not genuine expressions of love, but are instead manipulative tactics that keep the other person emotionally engaged, even as they continue to cause harm. The mind begins to associate pain with love, and love with pain. The toxic partner knows that by alternating between affection and neglect, they can maintain control over the other person's emotions, creating an emotional dependency that is hard to break. This cycle is devastating because it creates confusion. The victim of the toxic relationship becomes trapped in a state of emotional turmoil, never fully understanding whether they are loved or rejected, whether they are worthy or undeserving. They become caught between the desire to escape the pain and the longing for the fleeting moments of affection. This confusion makes it difficult to see the truth, that the love they are receiving is not real, and that they are sacrificing their peace and happiness for an illusion. The Stoics teach us that we must not allow our minds to be swayed by the turbulence of emotions. Marcus Aurelius, in his Reflections, often spoke about the importance of maintaining clarity of thought, of not allowing our minds to be clouded by external forces or the ebb and flow of our emotion. He understood that to remain calm and clear in the face of emotional turbulence is the path to true freedom. Breaking free from the cycle of pain and emotional dependency requires us to step back and observe the situation without judgment or emotional attachment. We must see the cycle for what it truly is, an unhealthy pattern that serves only to reinforce our fears, our insecurities, and our doubts. We must recognize that our happiness is not dependent on the actions of another person, that we are capable of finding peace and joy within ourselves, independent of the emotional highs and lows that define the toxic relationship. This realization requires strength, self-awareness, and a willingness to let go of the dependency that has taken root in our hearts. The Stoics understood that to be dependent on another person for our emotional well-being is to give away our power. We allow someone else to control our emotions, to dictate our sense of self-worth, and to shape our reality. But true strength comes when we reclaim our own emotional autonomy, when we no longer allow anyone to have the power to dictate how we feel. We must learn to find peace within ourselves, to trust in our own ability to navigate the challenges of life, without relying on another for validation or emotional stability. This process is not easy, but it is the only path to true freedom. The cycle of pain and emotional dependency will only continue as long as we allow it to. To break free, we must choose to release the need for validation from others, to stop seeking love in places that cause us harm, and to embrace the truth that our happiness is ours to create. It is only when we let go of the cycle that we can step into a life of true emotional independence, one where our peace is not threatened by the actions of others, and our sense of self-worth is grounded in the knowledge that we are complete, whole, and enough, just as we are.